welcome to the October 23rd meeting of the Hadley Public Schools. Do I have a motion to open this meeting?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Recording in progress.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Paul is unable to make it today, sends his regrets, but we do have quorum with the four of us. Okay, Annie, can you take us through any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, my apologies. This is kind of a lot of adjusting because people's schedules kept changing. So actually what we'd like to do this evening is begin the evening with our student recognition of our MASS and NASDAQ award winners. And both of our students, I believe, are here and will have the opportunity to turn their cameras on if they choose. Everyone should have co-host privileges. After that, then we'll do the HES strategy presentation and the HA strategy presentation, and everything else should follow. We did add, we'll be providing you with information on our engaging of an engineering design firm. Chris will be updating the school committee on what we need to do. And I added some items, specific items to the superintendent update. And some updates on special town meeting and the HES playground project. Also, under action items, I neglected to include votes for you to approve some things you'll need to approve, which includes both school improvement plans or strategy documents like you will see this evening. And yes, and we will have to add, which I'll do that. Oh, no, we don't actually. So that's it. Those are all of our adjustments in our planning.
Right, very good. Thank you. We'll start by inviting members of the public to make any comments. We ask that you limit those comments to 3 minutes. They should be pertinent to the agenda items we have here, and we are not obligated to respond to any of those comments, but consider those as fuel for future meetings. If you'd like to make a public comment, go ahead and raise your digital hand and we will unmute you. Okay, seeing none, we shall proceed with the agenda. Annie, we're starting with the Hadley Elementary School strategy presentation.
Right. No, we're actually going to start with the student awards. The students are here and their families are here.
All right, very good.
We love to do that. And so I do believe I see Mrs. iPad and Ishida and Brian Spot. So you don't have to, but you're certainly welcome. You should be able to, if you'd like, you will have the opportunity to unmute yourself or turn your camera on, entirely up to you. So every year, and look, the first camera I saw, that's let me first say, we do this annually. So 2 students, sometimes 3, but at least 2 students are selected annually for the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents Achievement Award and Academic Excellence Award, and also an Achievement Award from the New England School Development Council. We have 2 students who are being honored with these awards this evening, Jace Lansafani and Yuki Ishida. And both of these students are high-achieving superstars. I love doing this every year because when I read through the accomplishments of these young people, I mean, it's just exhausting. Like I'll have to go home and go to bed, really, after reading this. They do so much and they do it so well. And on top of all of their intellectual achievement, their academic achievements, their grades and projects, I'm just always so impressed at just what delightfully decent young people we have at Hopkins Academy who are so committed to improving their school and improving their community and are ready to just step out into the world and improve the world. And these folks have done some amazing things. I am going to start with Yuki. Yuki has worked, and this is from Ms. Sear, describing some of your accomplishments, and then I'm going to list out some additional accomplishments. Yuki has worked hard during his career at Hopkins Academy to obtain a 4.1 GPA. He's challenged himself by taking several upper-level courses, such as AP Literature and Composition, AP World History, and our honors mathematics sequence. He's a dedicated student and an extremely hard worker. Outside of school, he participated in a work-based learning alliance during the summer of 2023. So this is a brand new program, and not a lot of students stepped up and stepped in. It required that students collaborate with students from across the Commonwealth, and actually I think from across the country, to research ways that they could enhance diversity in the medical field and barriers associated with diversity in the medical field. Yuki later submitted research, and it was presented to the Harvard medical staff. He plans to study sports management next year. In addition to those accomplishments, he's participated in a paid internship program. He's a USA Hockey game official. This award this evening, he's also a varsity athlete in both baseball and boys ice hockey. Yuki, I am tremendously grateful for the fact that you've shared your talents, your intellect, your skill, and your character with your fellow classmates and with our community. Thank you so much for making Hopkins Academy a better place by simply being who you are, being such a wonderfully hard worker. Thank you and congratulations.
Congratulations, Yuki.
Congratulations. And if you'd like to say anything, you are welcome.
I just wanted to say thank you for just handing me this award. I didn't even know like this was a thing, to be honest. So just getting this is pretty special. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'm just grateful for the opportunities that Hopkins has given me, especially with that paid internship, and just overall just helping me get smarter and better in my educational studies. And hopefully that will be enough for me to get into UMass, which I'm planning to go on next year. So thank you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you. You
Yay,
made that
Yuki.
happen. Yay, Yuki is right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And our second award winner this evening, Jace Lantifa. Jace ranks first in her extremely competitive class and has taken many of our honors and advanced placement offerings. And I have to do this because I looked at this, I said, so AP courses, AP US History, AP Literature, AP Bio, AP Environmental Science, and currently in AP Calculus. Holy guacamole, there's a lot of AP courses. In addition to that, she's very involved in Hopkins Academy and in our community. So in the community, she's a volunteer at the Goodwin Memorial Library. She's also the recipient of the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Award, in which students participate in organizing fundraising and many volunteer events. She works in our has worked in our after-school program. She too is a varsity athlete in varsity cross country. She plays club field hockey and is on the varsity swim team. In addition to all of this, she also demonstrates an incredible amount of leadership. She's been on student council since 2021, is currently the president of this in her senior year. She's a peer mentor, a key club member. Key club members have to volunteer a minimum of 20 hours each year. She's the club secretary. She's in charge of organization and planning coordination for this school year. She's a member of our drama club, our philosophy club, our prom committee president. I have to imagine that that's probably the most complicated job out of all these jobs. That's just what my money is on. That's the most challenging. And has continually demonstrated class leadership from middle school until now. She also participates in jazz band, concert band, pep band, and marching band. In addition to that, Ms. Sear said, Jace is a wonderful model of our Hawks values: honesty, accountability, welcoming, kind, and supportive. Jace plans to apply to the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and she also is someone who has completed an internship program with us, and this summer completed a laboratory internship at the University of Massachusetts. Wow. Thank you. Just as I said to Yuki, thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing all of your talents and your wisdom and your good heart with your fellow students, with all of us, and with the community at large. And I'm so excited to see what you do with your life and what you do in the world. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Jace.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the acknowledgement. And thank you for a good school community and our experience. I really appreciate it. And the internship opportunity was absolutely amazing. And I hope that that stays possible for future students.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm working hard on it. Congratulations. Congrats. So I have and of course, congratulations to your parents too. I'm going to assume that y'all didn't just kind of raise yourselves, do it all on your own. So congratulations to your parents and all their contributions and hard work. Thank you for that. Thank you for these beautiful human beings that you raised and shared with us. And I will deliver to you both your fancy certificate. I have them in my office and I'll deliver them to Hopkins tomorrow. So thank you. You are welcome to stay for all of the school committee meeting, as much of it as you'd like. And we also take no offense, none, if you decide you have other.
Thank you again, Yuki and Jace, and families. You remind us why we do this. This labor of love of ours is really about supporting students like you. So thank you again for serving as those role models that we can all look up to. Nicely done. All right, we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which Annie
HES strategy.
is.
I know, just keep leaning into me because this thing is like a Jackson
All over the place.
thing right now.
Okay, so over to you, Jen Dowd.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate Dr. McKenzie's flexibility. I was worried I wasn't going to be timely with my presentation due to parenting. So I appreciate you, Dr. McKenzie, for readjusting the agenda. And I want to thank all of you for letting me present tonight. It's always such a gift to be able to look at my strategic document and say, okay, what are we doing? How much more can we do? What are some things that need to change? And so that's exactly what I've been doing in the past couple of weeks with my team. So I just want to say thank you for letting me present tonight. You did receive the document, so I'm just going to give some highlights under each column. Under instructional leadership, I continue to promote and foster opportunities for staff to collaborate around student data. We continue to have a team approach when discussing student-specific interventions through our tiered systems of support led by the great work of Michelle Witowitz. We have organized professional development opportunities, specifically in the science of reading trainings, which there are many HES teachers that are participating in that, actively participating in that. We also continue to look at grade level assessments, our FAST data, our MAP data, and our MCAS data, just to measure student growth and identify gaps in instructions from grades K to 6. Those are our data days, and those are ongoing. Under operation and management, I've worked with staff to enhance the educational opportunities for all the students through various initiatives. This year, with the help and support of Dr. McKenzie, I was allowed to expand our STEAM Lab program from a part-time schedule to a full-time schedule. And it's just been wonderful to see that our STEAM Lab now has grown to a 5-day-a-week program. And that teacher is Miss Jay Shree. And she's able to offer math support, enrichment opportunities for specific students, and increase time for students kindergarten through grade 6 to have weekly STEAM lessons. I'd also like to mention that HES met the criteria for being a Project Lead the Way distinguished school this year, which is just fantastic and a very special honor. And I really attribute that to all of the work. I credit all that work to Ms. Jayshree for all of her hard work and our teachers that are invested in providing those opportunities to students. We continue to provide students at HES a weekly Spanish lab, which has been run by the fabulous Miss Flores, and who collaborates with the fabulous Senora Fitzgibbons. And we've also been working on organizing an after-school Chinese club as an additional club starting soon. And our homework club has grown and just been a wonderful resource to families for before school care for grades 2 through 6. And we see many more students accessing that resource. And I'd love to give a special shout out to Coach Catania and Miss Sophie, who've been running that club in Miss Chaudry's absence while she's up at Hopkins doing wonderful work there. I'd also like to highlight the continued implementation of procedures for MTSS, our tiered systems of supports, our positive behavior intervention and supports, and related initiatives to foster a positive and inclusive school community. I continue to work with the PBIS team on analyzing student data, identifying behavior interventions, and providing monthly school-wide incentives, which has become extremely popular with many of our students. We had pumpkin painting with Mr. Bartolomeo, pizza with the principal is going to be coming up, and a whole bunch of other wonderful wing rewards for our students. So that's just been ongoing and great to see. Under family and community engagement, our Panorama Family Survey results have some wonderful suggestions on how to improve our school. The feedback was welcomed, and so some of the feedback from the survey directly impacted my initiatives on my strategic plan to increase my parent and family communication. So aside from my monthly newsletters, which I believe have been shared with most of you and all of my families, we also have encouraged this year for teachers to send out weekly emails informing families about things that are happening in the classrooms and any important schedule changes and instructional information that need to be shared at a grade level specific. This year, I was extremely happy and proud with how many new HES families enrolled, both students who live in Hadley and families that have chosen HES as a school choice option for their children. We added 26 new school choice students from kindergarten to grade 6. If you think about it, that's a full classroom of students that have chosen Hadley Elementary School as an option for their children. And so I gave a lot of tours over the summer. I answered a lot of questions. I continue to do that, but some of that work was overwhelming. And so we were able to create this year the Hadley Public School Family Ambassadors, which was just a beautiful tribute to how welcoming our school is. And so I put it out to some families of who would like to be our Hadley Public School first family ambassadors. We had an overwhelming response. And so I would just like to briefly say thank you to the Uckney family, the Nagel family, the Shalanda family, the Leister family, the Siz family, the Langoni family, the Bruger family, the Kindell family, and the Kinchla family for being our first Hadley Public Schools family ambassadors. And really, it's just an opportunity for us to give additional resources to enrolling families to say, this family is here to answer any questions and welcome you in. And so I just wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you for that. And then also this year, we'll be increasing our involvement with PTO-sponsored activities. I'm sure you've seen a lot of fundraisers. The PTO is hard at work, making sure that we have more opportunities for families to interact with one another in the school. And as far as professional culture, as far as creating a professional culture, we continue to work at HES to foster an inclusive school. Our staff participated in August and in September, a PD with Dr. Warnham on fostering inclusive practices as a staff. We continue to meet as a staff around school culture. I continue my work with the HES leadership team to provide everything from schedules to support to how do we lift up our students and staff so all voices feel heard. I continue to look at ways to make an inclusive school and a welcoming school. And those are just some of the highlights, but I'm open for questions, comments, feedback.
Thank you, Jen. An impressive year. Thank you for taking us through it. And it's a lot. And we have multiple initiatives that are new and directly in response to a lot of the surveying and work that we've done to sort of assess, our current situation. And I'm just really pleased to see that response. I would say one last thing, and then I'm going to open it up to my colleagues to add to their thoughts and feedback as well. I'm really happy to hear about the ambassadors program. From the sounds of it, it looks to be a very representative and diverse community of families as well. And I think, I've been thinking a lot, as my colleagues know, about how we foster a sense of belonging at both the elementary school and Hopkins. And I think that's a key way to do it. So thank you for that. And I look forward to hearing more about that program as it gets launched.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite my colleagues. Tara, do you have a comment?
I'm just always impressed. I have no feedback except just I'm always impressed when we do these portions of the strategy. Because whenever we meet for our retreat, you know, we have these grand ideas, right? And we have all these thoughts, and then administration is the one who kind of like takes all our thoughts and puts it into motion. And it's like they make our dreams come true, for lack of a better word, right? But then they make their dreams come true and our students' dreams come true. It's just fantastic to see this. And you know, I'll just leave it with one thing when it comes to community engagement. I'm just so happy. Yes, the ambassadors program is really exciting. And I just love the idea of having these families welcomed into our community, and making them feel as though they belong. They're part of the family. And I'll tell you, you know, we did do the MRSH, the ice cream social with the PTO this year.
Yep.
I'm always impressed with the number of staff that come, and I'm thankful that administration comes. And I had met one family, I'm going to put Jen on the spot. I had met one family who came up to me and was so excited for his children to be joining the district because Miss Dowd was his teacher when he was in school. And he was just so very excited. And one other thing I'll tell you, the type of principal we have in our school, which I love. I was driving away from school today, picking up my children, and I look over and there's this woman with blonde hair. She had her back to me and she's holding this little baby to another man. And I'm like, that's the type of principal we have. Warm, welcoming, after school, talking to families and engaging with families. And I just think it's fantastic. And it's such a great way to help foster a culture of belonging by just putting yourself out there and being available and being welcome. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
I'm not going to be able to follow that up. I was just going to kind of agree with Tara and say that every year I feel like we put more on your guys' plates. Every year we try to be more aggressive with the changes and the positive things that we're trying to do. And every year you blow us away. So just very thankful for the work that you do, and happy to see that everything's moving in the right direction.
And I can't really follow up on either of those because it's just, you're doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's wonderful feedback. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm available if anybody has any other things or questions later on by email. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. The school committee, we use strategy documents. We don't call them improvement plans. We like to think of things as like forward motion and not always being corrective. But by law, school committee approves school improvement plans annually. So you do I'm asking the school committee to approve the HES strategy document.
So that when we see it at the end of this academic year, it will be filled with all the things that you've done in relation to these strategies. So it's the work is ahead, and we're excited to see how this next academic year plays out. So thank you. All right, so next we turn to Hopkins Academy.
Do you mind if we take a motion to approve this? I just don't want to lose sight of it. So we have to approve each one.
Yes, I thought we would do them at the end, but we can totally go one at a time. Do I hear a motion to approve the Hadley Elementary School strategy document?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion approved.
Thank you.
Now to move to Hopkins Academy and to hear about the strategy documents for that school. We have April Camuso here, principal. Hi, April.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
I appreciate all of you this evening being willing to listen.
Well, can I interrupt real quick? I have access.
To which one?
strategy.
The document or the presentation?
The one that's on the, I just don't have access.
Let me make sure. This should be public.
Sorry, April, that's not for you.
That's okay.
Sorry about that.
There are two links. So
And also you'll have to refresh. So you should be able to see the first one is the actual strategy document. And then there's some notes.
Oh, I got you. My bad.
And everyone in the public should be able to see.
that's okay. The presentation came after. So the original link was just to the strategy document. And then I added the presentation to also try to help explain a little bit the organization of the strategy document for this year. First, I just want to say this is the third year of the 3-year strategy document. So it has some sort of continued pieces, and then there are also some add-ons as well, or new pieces. I'm not going to discuss every piece similar to Jen, but I'll point out a couple different important key aspects. And if you have any questions about any of those or anything else I didn't mention, feel free. The presentation I included just to add a little more background information about the strategy document itself. When I took the document to my school council, it was very clear that it was not user-friendly the way I had written it. And I really want the strategy document to be understandable to the general public as much as possible anyway. So I'm going to go through how I set it up in using DESE's vision of a learner, and then sort of itemize everything under there instead of the traditional standards that we're looking at as administrators. If you're looking through the presentation itself, you can see one of the first slides talks about DESE's educational vision, which is certainly in line with Hadley Public Schools' vision and Hopkins' vision, that students will attain academic knowledge and skills, understand and value their self and others, and engage with the world, with the hopes that they can be curious and creative, shape their own path, feel connected, and be empowered. Now, the way that DESE discusses achieving that is through thinking about instructional design, tiered supports, and systems and structures. And so for this document, I've taken those 3 categories, and that's where I've lined up our different initiatives. Our own vision itself, again, is similar, but we hope that all Hopkins students can figure out who they are, use their voices to advocate for what matters to them, feel good and happy when they're at school, to love learning, to use that knowledge to do whatever brings them joy, and to grow and learn from their mistakes. And the second part of how I organized this is to think about not only those 3 larger categories, but again, if you're sort of reading this and thinking about all of our initiatives, having some subcategories. So looking at programming, curriculum and lesson planning, assessment and adjustment to practice, professional development, and management and operations. And so if you look at the actual document itself, you can see along the top are those 3 categories that DESE referred to. And then the 3 categories are on the left. On the top, if you want to, you can at some point click on DESE's actual educational vision. They have these 3 bubbles that kind of digs further into what they want for students, and that's what's along the top. And then where those 2 come together and meet is where we have all of those subcategories with our specific steps. So that's how it's been designed. Looking at that first category then of instructional design, for each one, I just referenced 3, again, bigger pieces, but certainly you can ask me about anything else that's in there. One thing that we're going to do is continue our implementation and growth of our college and career programming, which includes increased access to AP courses, early college, high school, innovation pathways, and internships and programming in general, and developing and holding a career fair later this spring. We also plan, or are participating already, in an Inclusive Practices Academy, and then we'll implement what we learned from that in UDL practices in lesson planning and instruction. UDL stands for Universal Design for Learning. And third, we're training our staff in restorative justice practices and applying those practices through updates to our advisory curriculum, student discipline practices, and an integration of circles into classroom practice, which can include both something like coming up with agreements together, but can also include content-related lessons as well. In that second category of tiered supports, we are implementing the revised curricula. You might remember that we spent the last couple years revising the curricula in Hopkins Academy, not just changing over the template, but including social justice standards, including specific accommodations for students with disabilities and English language learners, looking at the representation in that in each course, and doing that both through thinking about the resources and the texts that people are focusing on and whose voices are there. And so we are implementing those, and we'll continue to take a look at those as we do so, since it's not ever really one and done with curriculum. And we will continue to review those over the next several years. We also have regular team meetings to analyze data where we identify targeted interventions and progress monitor. This includes using universal screeners data and positive behavior interventions and supports. And for that, we use our School Brains data. We are also hoping to have increased positive communication with students and families. There are increased proactive and positive communication forms, such as welcome emails. All teachers at the start of the year sent out welcome emails to their families, messages about general things that students have done well, sharing student weekly emails, which I'm doing, and chatting with Camuso, and more. We've spoken a lot with the whole faculty and their leadership team about what that increased communication looks like at a middle school and high school level, and how we're going to continue to increase that over time. Under systems and structures, we're also working on fostering a culture of inclusivity through developing a shared definition of equity and culturally responsive teaching practices. I'm personally excited about a lot of the changes that are coming to the teacher rubrics next year, which includes some resources about looking at observations from that lens. We are continuing our implementation of positive behavior interventions and supports and our advisory program. This year, our advisory program is twice as long as it was previously, although it's not every week, it's 2 to 3 times a month instead. So that overall time balances out. We increase the time because the advisories are held in circle. So each one is held in circle, and there's a variety of different topics that we cover during that in order to further build the relationships between our students and our staff and all together. We're also ensuring building safety and access to essential resources. We have a whole new set of walkie-talkies, which is really lovely, and we're getting better at using those every day. Providing regular safety briefings at our staff meetings and ensuring that policies and systems are in place to support all students in equity-centered conflicts, such as civil rights violations. And that's some work that Sarah Jabber and I are doing together. So again, there's certainly more in here, and if there's anything that is missing, I'm open to hearing that as well. So if you have any feedback, questions, or concerns, I'm happy to take that.
Thank you, April. I'm really similarly pleased to see so much of what we've been talking about reflected here. I'm especially happy about the advisories and how that's come to pass. I remember a time when there were no advisories, and I think, if I recall correctly, they first began during the pandemic, but I could be wrong. It could have been the prior year, but I'm really pleased to see that continue, and I'd love to personally just learn a little bit more about how they're continuing, what kinds of things are we learning by holding these advisories, our connection to the students' connection to themselves. How have the outcomes changed as a result of putting in place these amazing circles of support? So I'd love to hear about that later in the academic year. If you could keep an eye towards recording outcomes, that's something I'm particularly keen to learn about. I'm going to pass it over to my colleagues to see what feedback they might have as well.
Christine.
Okay, I didn't know who was going first. Okay. No, I mean, everything looks great. I have heard about the use of the walkie-talkies, and that's great. There's certain people that should not be allowed to touch the technology, because I know that can get dicey. But no, I think it everything looks good. I would like to say that they're I like the way that you're doing the advisories. We have always had advisories. That's not because peer mentors have been doing it for a long time. So I think it's just the way that you're doing it now is more effective. And I like the longer time to really get into a discussion rather than short discussion, where the kids can really ask questions and really digest what's being said. I think that's great. So great. Great. Go ahead, Ethan.
All right. I was just gonna say, as usual, great job. I love the commitment to kind of the restorative justice practices. I love the inclusivity practices, and I love how we constantly are thinking of ways to kind of make ourselves unique in terms of the educational opportunities that we offer. The continued access to AP, the early high school, like these are programs that kind of make Hopkins this kind of like unique place that kids can come and learn, and I just really appreciate that.
I'm going to echo Ethan on the opportunities available because that always stands out to me. Every year we seem, again, school committee seems to think, what more can we do? What more can we do? And administration is always on top of it and sometimes even a step ahead of us in kind of that exploration piece of what we can do for our students to increase their opportunities within our school. So I appreciate that. And I feel like the high school is always a little bit trickier. And I don't have anybody in the high school, so I'm not over there yet with my hands in it yet. But what I do appreciate about this document is that it feels as though we're listening to our community, right? Our school community, and we are responding. So I feel like we're looking at this, and this document says, I hear you, I hear your concerns, and we want to do something about it. And that's what I see written all over this document as concerns have come up over the year or through surveys or whatnot. So I appreciate that. I'm not even going to go into, everything. Really. Okay. So bullying, anti-bullying programming. I really love the part, let's see what section is in tiered supports, where we talk about getting more involved with the school community, increasing PTO collaboration, any way to get parents involved in high school more, I think is fantastic. And I love the implementation of the support system, the tiered support system in the high school. So I'm excited for that to be really amping up this year. So thank you.
Thanks, team. And thank you, April. Any thoughts or comments based on what you've heard?
Yeah, that's really helpful. It's helpful for me too to hear what you guys also sort of look at and think about in here. This is Jen and I think a lot about these, and we're trying to capture everything that we do into one document, which is challenging, I think. And things continue to evolve, but it is a really helpful activity when we revise these to think about, okay, what do we need to do? Where do we need to focus our efforts? So I appreciate all of that feedback and look forward to updating you all later in the year as well.
Terrific. Thank you. All right, we'll need to vote on this document also. Do I hear a motion to approve the Hopkins Academy strategy document?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Thank you.
And can we leave our principals to go back to their young families, or?
Yes, our principals go back to their young families, and then a new young family steps up. And I'm so glad Mr. Flynn has brought a guest speaker to help present the field trip, which I cannot wait to hear the guest speaker tell us about DC.
Milana.
Oh, she's so adorable.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I have Freya with me right now. Yes, you have received some materials requesting to go on the DC trip again, which would be next October. This is a trip that we've tried to offer every 2 years for our students. It is also a trip that we like to offer because the most low-income students are usually able to go on this trip out of all of our destination trips. We are committed to continuing to offer our scholarships, which are often generously funded by the trustees, and try to keep costs down. So some changes have been made this year. One is we have added an extra day. So last year the last time we went and Humira was on that trip, it was 5 days. This time we would be able to offer 6 days. without missing any additional school time and instructional time. And we would actually save money because this time around, as a DC native myself, I thought, you know what? I think it'd be better if I just designed the trip with Jason Burns and cut out the middleman. So we've gotten rid of the tour company. Jason and I have started designing the trip ourselves, and we've estimated that the last time the trip was being offered at $950 for 5 days. This time we're confident that we're going to be able to offer the trip at $800 for 6 days, which is a saving of $340 per student when we look at the daily costs. And that's many thousands of dollars over all the students. So we're hopeful that that is an effort to continue to cut costs while offering additional programming. So we would like to keep a lot of the same things. You'll see in there references to going to a play, references to going on some day trips to Mount Vernon and other places, to a lot of the museums. But also we're hoping to include a trip to nearby Harper's Ferry, which was the seat of the John Brown massacre and kind of uprising, but which was one of the events that kind of kicked off the Civil War. So it would be a great opportunity for students to learn about our history there. It's a multicultural experience. We really make an effort to make sure that our students are stepping out of their comfort zone to get an opportunity to interact with various different people's stories and experiences. So we have included some appendices to the letter with a planned trip itinerary. This is a very rough draft because you can imagine Jason and I planning the trip by ourselves. It takes quite a lot of time. So we wanted to make sure it got approved before we sunk our whole lives into it. So it's a rough itinerary. You'll also see some of the connections to curriculum and standards in one of the other appendices, and then some fundraising estimates as well. We decided this time to offer group fundraising so that everybody would get similar benefits from our fundraising endeavors. So I'd be happy to take any questions you guys might have.
Well, Amy, let me start by saying what a honor. It was a real honor to participate in last year's DC trip. It was a packed 5 days. Students were exhausted, and it was so interesting, everything that they were learning, exposed to so much. Really, talk about bringing the learning to life. Every place we went, our educators, and especially you in particular, had such a strong command of what the significance of each site was. I was just really, really impressed. And I'm just so pleased to hear that you'll be able to extend it to an additional day, and hopefully that relaxes a little bit the pace so that students have a little bit more time to sleep and actually rest up for that exciting adventure. And I'm really glad to hear that you're, personally involved with Professor Burns to design the whole experience. I think that's great how you're reducing the cost to the students and making it even more accessible, and let us know how we can help just truly live up to that. I want to make sure that every student who wants to go is able to go somehow. And thank you for making the fundraising a joint unit. I think that's really a good way to support all students. I'm going to hold on. I think that's probably enough from me, but I'm going to invite my colleagues to share their thoughts as well.
I echo you, Humira, in everything you said, and I just have 2 comments and a question if I didn't forget them. So one, when I read through, I was really excited to see that there was a play in consideration given who's planning the trip. I thought that was very suiting. So I was excited about that. And I really love your thoughtfulness in this echoes Humera in doing this yourself, especially in somebody who's got an expertise in the area, in order to help reduce the cost per student, because this is an exciting trip, in an otherwise kind of expensive trip for some families to consider taking. So being able to spend that many days for such a low cost is really, really quite great for a lot of students and families who might not otherwise be able to afford it. And I think it's exciting for high school students to be able to go. And my only question was, I'm guessing you and Jason have already kind of thought through this, but just capturing, the amount of students, so that cap, anybody who hasn't been able to go, I'm hoping that we're not going to hit that cap so that we have students who want to go, who've never been able to go, are not able to. I'm guessing you guys have already thought that with the number of students, but just making sure that that is available for every student who hasn't had that opportunity to be able to go through these grades.
Yeah, that's a great question. We had discussed that because we know that there's some students who've discussed interest in repeating the trip and going a second time. We've already decided the students who have not attended the trip would be given first dibs, so to speak. And then after those students had had an amount of time to register for the trip, we would then, if we have extra slots, open up to students who would like to revisit and expand their horizons from last time. But yes, you're exactly right. We are also planning on making sure that seniors who have not gone on the trip, since they would not have an opportunity to go again, some of the younger students would have an opportunity to go in another 2 years, that they would also be given first priority for, a specific period of time to open that up for them, and then let the younger students come after that.
Great. Thank you.
I just want to say, Amy, I know the school committee will vote to approve this. I mean, certainly you and Mr. Burns have put together this trip for a number of years, and probably the school committee could just approve it without your presentation. But I appreciate you being here, because I also want to say publicly how much I appreciate the work and the thoughtfulness that you put into the trip. Clearly, you folks every year look for educational experiences that align with the mission and the values of the district. You go out of your way to make sure that students are experientially learning about inclusivity, about racial justice, about civic engagement. I see that you'll be spending time with Representative McGovern. I know this isn't just about putting together a fancy tourist trip, but it is truly an enriching educational experience. And I deeply appreciate how much work you put into it and how much thought you put into it. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Annie.
All right, if there are no other comments, then I invite a motion to approve the DC 2024 plans for a trip.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion approved. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thanks to your beautiful baby.
Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
The little one with you. Bye. All right. We are going to move next to the continue the discussion about bills related to MCAS. That's the part of the agenda we're in, right, Annie? Just want to make sure. All right, terrific. And to answer any questions, we have both Ken Richards. Ken, you've been waiting patiently. Thanks so much.
No problem.
And we also have Annie McKenzie, both of whom brought this opportunity to us last time. And we had some questions about what we're allowed to do as a school committee and what we're allowed to do as employees of the district in legislative activity or advocating for a certain position. And Annie got back to me, and the school attorney suggested that I put in a call with the State Ethics Commission just to understand what the bounds were for our role. And if you have never called and you have any questions at all, I highly urge you to give them a ring because they have an attorney of the day who is assigned to your question. This attorney that was assigned to my question did the research and came back to me with suggestions. He had a position, a set of advice for a school committee chair. I think the same generally holds true for the school committee members. But the document that informs his thinking actually has guidance for the superintendent's role as well as for teachers. And I'm going to share my screen and just give you a few excerpts. I asked Annie to drop the link, so the URL to my copy of the document is in the agenda. But if I could share my screen, I'm going to share, let's see, it is here. All right, so this is just copying and pasting verbatim this State Ethics Commission Advisory 11-1, which informs this entire topic. And there's 3 sections in particular that I want to urge you to take a look at. These are not long sections and they're not really dense in terms of their writing, but by and large, elected officials who are elected or appointed, but are in policymaking roles, like the school committee, we are allowed to evaluate something like this, sign a joint letter. We're allowed to make our position known. We're allowed to use our school committee meeting minutes of the school committee, the website of the school committee to advocate to state a certain position, but it should be providing factual information. So the school committee endorses this bill, approves of this petition, but rather than getting into the nitty-gritty of engaging in advocacy. The attorney suggested that the crossing of the line would be to use our school resources like school email. So all the school committee members have school emails, using school email to email lots of people about our position, but rather just use the normal channels of school committee communication to get across what we were advancing. There's some examples in here. I won't go through all of them, but I will state that this that just talks about, like, we will not undertake mass mailings or advertising in newspapers or distribute to voters directly or indirectly flyers and things like that. That's what not to do as a school committee. But minutes, talking about it on our recording, putting it on our school committee website, and even sending in letters or signing petitions, that's allowed. What can you do if, as it relates to political activities? So may do election-related political activities in which only elected public employees may engage. Well, I highlighted a specific paragraph here. So public employees are not prohibited by the conflict of interest law in their official capacity, either individually or as a governmental body, stating their viewpoints and positions on ballot questions, regardless of the subject matter. However, unlike with ballot questions, elected boards and other elected governmental bodies may not, as a board, endorse or oppose candidates. So if someone's running for school committee, we can't, as a collective, say we endorse this person. That is not allowed. So that's the bounds of elected, but non-elected public employees. It really varies based on your role. So examples of this activity might be opposing or advancing town meeting warrant articles. And in that instance, you might have a non-policymaking public school teacher may, during their work hours, prepare, produce, distribute flyers.
Sorry, you just said may not. Ken knows this,
May
but
not,
I just
may
want to be
not,
clear.
right.
Yeah, may
Yes,
not.
they may
We
not.
don't
They
want to get
may
in
not.
trouble. We may not do that. You
May
guys.
not. That's right. They may not, using your school work hours, prepare, produce, distribute materials in support of, or hold signs, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you cannot use your school email or computer to send out mass messages in support of that. But interestingly, I did find some additional information in the same paragraph. So it goes on to say, however, participation in non-election related political activities is not prohibited where it is duly authorized by a superior elected or appointed policymaking public employee and with the authority to engage himself in such activities concerning matters. So an example is the superintendent of schools is authorizing, say, the advocacy of like paying for locker upgrades to the locker room, and your direct reports, Annie, under your supervision within your purview, because this is an item within your purview, you can instruct people to go ahead and make those flyers and advocate for that position. So there's some room there. But by and large, I would suggest that you should be in touch with teachers about this. This is a school related matter. We're talking about MCAS. We're talking about how we assess student learning. And so I think it would be within the realm of our role as educators to advance a certain position. I think we're safe in respect to that because it's your purview, you're safe. It's clear in this document that superintendents have a responsibility to advocate for their perspective. So you're safe. And because educators are your direct reports, I think that they are safe as well. To be 100% certain, I welcome you to contact the state ethics hotline and speak to your attorney of the day. But I think you'll find the same is true. And so I think that brings us to the matter at hand for our team. We've had an extra month to review the materials. There's 2 bills. They seem to be jointly being advocated by the House and Senate. And there are also some petitions. I really appreciate what the bills are attempting to do. The gist of it, as far as I understand, and feel free to ask Annie and Ken some questions, is that they're going to assemble a commission of people to first of all, put a pause on MCAS. So until such time as a new method has been defined, a commission will come together and within about 9 months' time, by fall of 2024, I guess before the academic year, they'll have a new plan in place and recommendations for how assessment should occur. I think everything I read seemed to be consistent with my understanding that standardized tests are not an accurate or adequate measure of our students' performance. More often than not, MCAS and a fail grade on MCAS will really hold back our students' prospects when they may have just as much abilities and potential. And I think that first and foremost, we should not be holding back students from graduating who can be gifted in other ways, but held back by standardized test. So I welcome my school committee colleagues to share their perspectives. I'm happy to offer to write a letter that you all review for next month and potentially consider sending into in support of this. And I think we should individually sign whatever petitions are available. That's my personal view. I sincerely believe that that's the right move for our next generation of assessment.
So my question was going to be, is this something that you, Mary, you would put a letter together? So thank you for answering the question.
I would assume
taking this and taking this on and kind of getting the answers for us. My stance has not changed since the last school committee meeting and reviewing this information. So I am still in support of this. If it's something you can put together and we agree to sign as a body, I'm happy to do that. And I think I do understand correctly. We can sign individually as well. But I'm happy to do that as a unified body as well. If everybody's on board with that, I do support it.
Great, thank you.
Annie, I was going to ask, because Annie had sent something out as well, from the superintendent.
Association of School
Yeah, if
Superintendents.
you could address
Kim,
that.
you can also jump in if I'm incorrect. I'm gonna overly simplify this and say that the Thrive Act, which is the bill that the MTA is endorsing, there are two key components in the Thrive Act that I don't believe that the Mass Association of School Superintendents have really made a key component of the legislation they're advancing. Again, I'm going to oversimplify this. I believe that Mass Association of School Superintendents is really focused on this. Let's study an alternative. I think that the Thrive Act, which has been endorsed by the Mass Teachers Association, is saying, let's not study. Let's address two things very quickly. One is let's interrupt this cycle of receivership that is incredibly demoralizing to schools. My words, not necessarily the MTA's, incredibly demoralizing. And I imagine that the MTA would point to examples, for example, Holyoke. There's been a receivership for a long, long time, so that these things are not having the desired effect, and in fact may have unintended consequences that demoralizing students, staffs, and entire communities. So they want to interrupt the receivership cycle. And also, I do not believe that the MTA is saying do away with MCAS in its entirety. What they're concerned with is breaking the connection between a diploma and a passing score on 10th grade MCAS. Now, if I'm okay, she's not going to said yes. So, and the Mass Association of School Superintendents, which again, just because I'm a member, does not mean that I'm endorsing this position. I'm simply stating their position. Is that, well, let's study and make a plan and then make an adjustment. MTA's, the Thrive Act is saying, yeah, we can study some things, but these two things need to be done immediately. Interrupt receivership, stop linking graduation to 10th grade MCAS. Did I get that right, Kim?
Yes, and then they're also going to establish a commission to make sure that this is all effective and doing what they want. That was the third portion.
They will study things. The Mass Association of School Superintendents wants to study and then act, and MTA wants to act and then study. There, I just did it for you.
So we have to decide, we have to choose one, Ken and Annie?
No, you can endorse whatever you would like. So certainly you could craft something, hearing the opinions of your colleagues about what they feel strongly about that and then, and you could endorse both. You can endorse one. You can endorse, we stand for these elements. Therefore, this is why we endorse this bill. I mean, people can sign as many petitions as they want, correct? Ken, if they chose to, right? There's no limit on.
Right. Each of them can sign they can sign this one because this one is being sent out by the MTA. And if you don't mind if I say something about, the difference between act now versus study, or study then act now, I figured I would mention how on October 4th, I actually got to testify before the Massachusetts Congress on this. And what I testified on was about actually how it affected our schools, and the fact that students that basically don't pass the MCAS, sometimes we are able to get them through a thing called a cohort appeal. Essentially, what you have is 6 students, and basically, if they have passed the same classes as that student, and one kid failed the MCAS, but everyone else passed the MCAS, they can pass that student and give them a diploma. However, our school system is sometimes too small to show the cohort because you need the kids taking the exact same classes. And so that's why I advocate for more of an action first, especially with our town. And so I went and made sure that Massachusetts Congress knew that too and heard from our small towns.
Glad you said that, Kenny. That's a really important point. I will say that. So what happens if you don't have a sufficient cohort, which can happen in a very small school, because Mr. Richards is right. The students have to have had to have sat for the exact same test administration. So I took biology in spring of 2022, and I had to find every student who took the same science course sequence as I did. Let's use math instead. Took Algebra 1, geometry, it can't be honors and regular, it has to be the exact same course in the exact same sequence. So you can imagine in a small school, you may not get a cohort. If you don't get a cohort, your option is something called a portfolio appeal. That is far more labor intensive. So it is inherently, Ethan shaking his head, yeah, because he has to be in high school. It is inherently an inequitable, right? If you're in a smaller school and you end up in portfolio appeal, it's just so much more work than the student whose SASIP can be thrown into a spreadsheet and I was just doing.
And it's very subjective. We've had students, we've had students do a portfolio, and it just, to put a student through that and then, sort of send it off and have your fate in somebody's hands is really should not be an option that way. I found it to be a very very stressful process.
Yeah, that's way too stressful for a high schooler. Way too stressful.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's also somewhat, subjective, and it was not something I would want my kid to go through. I know that.
Generally speaking, I think I'm in favor of either method, but I have a stronger affinity towards ACT than study, because studying can take a really long time and be curtailed by lots of different initiatives. And I think action is necessary. Action will incentivize thoughtful and quick study, in my view. And I wonder if anyone has any thoughts or comments about taking that approach. I can craft a letter that takes that approach if you all are willing.
I, being someone who, has given this test for many years, the fact that it's not addressing whether or not the test is being given. It's addressing how the test is being used. I don't have a problem with the test being given if it's used for the benefit of, finding holes in the student's education, or, an overall general, lack of something that needs to be addressed. But I think that as far as graduation requirement or for receivership, I think it's being used to penalize, not being used to advance students. And I don't think that it seems like it's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do, and what DESE says it's their mission is. That it's so yeah, I support it completely. If you want to go forward to that, I think it's a good idea.
I agree with Christine. It feels punitive, and so I'm in support of Ken's stance on it, and Christine's stand on, and yours as well, Humira. The act, we need to act on it now. That feels more in line with how we all seem to feel about this. We need to take action and then figure out how it should be handled, rather than watch it and decide, well, no change. So I agree. The acting means change is necessary, and I stand by that.
Great. Ethan, any final?
Yeah. I mean, it may come as no surprise, but I want to prefer to act now. I think this test is, it's proven to be inequitable. And when I'm looking at the MCAS referendum and bills, I see like what against, like it could potentially narrow the curriculum. It's taking time away from learning. Like these are all things that are really important to schools. And when we're taking that away so that students can take a test that may measure some type of achievement, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure it's telling us a whole lot of information. And then on top of that, to use it as a graduation requirement is just obnoxious, in my opinion. And to think that some student may have a diploma held up because of a test they took in 10th grade is I can't. Really
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like you said, in 10th grade, you're looking at students who sometimes, due to maturity, completely turn themselves around, and now they're they're just not right to base their future on a test that they took 2 years earlier. Especially for ELL students, you're looking at 2 more years of advancement in their language skills, and that's not taken into that's I remember sitting 6 o'clock at night, 6 p.m. with a student who English was not her first language, and they don't offer any kind of tests in her native language, and she got a reading excerpt on the the use of the word salt. She looked right at me and said, "Isn't it just salt?" I couldn't even say anything to her, and it was an awful experience to watch someone struggle and then know that could affect whether or not they graduate. It was heartbreaking. So, I think that it's actually been a long time coming that these things have been addressed.
Indeed. Okay, we have a plan, an action plan. I'm going to write a letter. I will share it with you all before we sign it. And so stay tuned for that. And I urge our superintendent and our teachers to, in light of the guidance, to consider acting in accordance with or in alignment with us. I think it's very possible in light of just how much support there is across the board. So, so thank you for bringing this to us, Ken and Annie.
Perfect. And we'll bring the letter you put together to the next committee meeting. So it's part of public view.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Ken.
so much, Ken.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move next to first reading of JLCG HPS allergy policy. Take it away, policy team.
Well, you
We'll make this quick. This is the first read of the food allergy policy that has been written. It has been conceived by the nurses here in Hadley with the support of the DPH as well as the School Nurses Association. So this is something that has been a collaborative effort. I believe, and Annie, correct me if I'm wrong, we have always had a protocol around food allergies, but this is our first kind of true policy on it. And this is the first read.
Great. I've given it a quick glance, and I will give it a more thorough read before our next meeting, where we will finalize it. Okay, moving on to the next item. Hopkins Academy has been placed on the AP School Honor Roll. April Camuso is not here, but Annie, can you?
I meant to put my name next to it. Yes. So just good news. You can click on the link. This is a wonderful honor. And this speaks to, which is part of school committee goal around inclusivity. So it's, we're recognized for doing outstanding work to welcome more students into AP courses and support them on the path to college success. So well done, Hopkins.
Congrats. That's excellent. Next item is Hampshire Franklin Baseball Umpires Association. Annie.
More good news. They sent a special plaque and wanted to thank Hadley Public Schools for always providing such a welcoming environment and supporting the mission that the Hampshire Franklin Baseball Umpires Association, and they especially called out Mr. Jeff Mish for how accommodating he is and how much he's done to help that organization, and to assist them when they need a venue, to assist them with things.
Not the basketball. No.
No, this one we just got, baseball umpires, and I'm sorry, I just took a cough drop. I'm trying to pretend like I did. That's what's happening.
No, we will work on fuller award from the basketball community.
Or soccer.
We've got some work to do there.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to item I, engaging engineering design firm for deep energy retrofit. Chris, are you there?
Here I am.
Hello.
So I reached out to the people from Eversource a few weeks ago for an update on the project, just so I could report back to the school committee how it was going. And I've got some, I guess, somewhat disappointing news in that it's going to put a little delay on the project. And that was that they kind of forgot to tell us something, and they apologized for it. What I was told by the gentleman from Eversource was that this is a new program. They're kind of learning it as they go as well. So in between the approval by the school committee and the beginning of the TA study by Eversource and some engineers there, we have to actually get the plans for this project done. And it's on Hadley Public Schools to select a designer, get the plans done, and then forward them on to Eversource for the TA study. With the reason being, as he told me, we can't really do a deeper TA study unless we know what the plans are. Otherwise, it would be no different than the initial study they did. So this was just relayed to me last Monday. We had scheduled a phone call, and it was last Monday morning. So that's really where we're at this point in time. I have reached out to Eversource, and they did provide me with a list of engineering firms that could do the design work. It was not, the entire list, say, in the state of Massachusetts, but just ones that they had worked with. I have also put out to the business managers listserv, just looking for other examples of design firms that can do this kind of work. I've reached out to the state in regards to whether or not we can use a state contract for this, which would really shorten the time. And unfortunately, haven't heard back from anyone yet on this.
How much is this going to cost?
Well, that's the other thing, that unfortunately, until we reach out for pricing, we really won't know. I would just, offer really an estimate based on very little other than, say, the athletic field design work was, close to $50,000. I would have to guess that, a project like this would be considerably more time consuming and difficult than the athletic fields. No offense to the athletic field design work. As soon as I can get the information back from the people I've reached out to, I would certainly pass it along to the committee. I just really wanted you to get, an update as to where we stand right now on this project.
Thank you, Chris, for checking in with them. I'm just so glad we know now rather than waiting for 4 or 5 months and then finding out that they hadn't even started it.
Right.
I know Sarah Ross, who's been working with, you all know Sarah Ross too, but Sarah Ross had specific companies that came to mind that had worked with schools in doing this. And I wonder, can you be in touch with Sarah about who those firms, those engineering firms were? Because if we can get a firm that's already worked with schools, that understands the business of schools, that understands this whole territory, I just think that we're going to be able to move a lot faster. And
why didn't this come up before?
To be honest, from what the person from Eversource said to us, he didn't know either. It was just one of those things that came up. Ann and I were in Worcester last week doing a presentation on this project, actually. And he mentioned it at that meeting as well. He was there. he mentioned the fact that, he kind of accidentally misled us into thinking that we were moving along with the project. And he did share a slide with the committee when he came to the last meeting, and it had basically 4 columns of progress in the project. And on the slide that he showed at the presentation in Worcester, he added an asterisk in between the second and third columns with a note down below that the district is responsible for choosing a designer and getting the work done. So again, I mean, it didn't come up, I guess, because really he didn't know. And my guess is that when I reached out to him for status on the project, he kind of said, "Uh-oh, what's going on here?" And because it's so new, and we're the first district, as he said, to be this far along.
But
I was disappointed.
I thought Sarah had already worked with districts that have done this.
So her role, I would underscore that part of that. The presentation that we did was with both Matt McTeague and Sarah Ross from the presentations from the Mass Association of School Facilities Administrators. So Sarah has provided a lot of advice to municipalities, to schools in general about all of the ways in which you can transition from fossil legacy fuels to more modern energy, reduce emissions. And she's particularly knowledgeable about tax incentives, rebates, what's available in the IRA. Deep energy retrofit. If you even think about what's happening in school building, most people don't bother. They just say, we're just going to build a new building. So she's, and to defend Eversource too, of that most of the work has been around new build, and there are very few deep energy retrofit are going into a school or municipal building and renovating to get off of legacy and onto modern energy. So
I'm not that surprised, honestly, because we are in new territory, right? And we are not afraid of being in new territory, which is why we're going down this path. This is not inconsistent from the fact that we when we originally went down this path, it was not presented to us incentives or clean energy options. So we are in new terrain here. Well, now that we know, can we make sure we find an engineering firm that has some experience with a deep energy retrofit? It could be on the eastern side of the state. It could be somewhere in New England. I think that's going to really help us solve this information gap that we have, and help us, manage our own expectations about how long it's going to take. Because what I'm hearing is that first there'll be an engineering study that might be 3 to 4 months, and then Eversource will take it and give it a technical assessment and put their filter on it, and that could take another, hopefully, 3 to 4 months, right? And so we're looking at 8 months out, and what that means to me, which is a little bit unfortunate, is that it's not going to be done in time for this next fiscal year ask, but rather the following year.
I would say that's a fair estimate. Yeah, absolutely. And just as an FYI, I did, they had mentioned a school in Arlington, Mass, that had not gone through a retrofit, but did the whole deep energy project, I believe, in a new building. And I did reach out to their business manager as well, just to ask who they used for a designer, how long it took, and what the costs were, approximately for the design work. Hoping really to have this information for you tonight, just to give you a better idea, but I haven't heard back yet either. So it's kind of just really a waiting game at this point. I'm waiting for people to get back to me.
Great, thank you. And yes, if you could please be in touch with Sarah Ross again. I know she has connections in this area. She knows a lot of people who are leading this kind of work in other parts of the state. And I can just, it's almost on the tip of my tongue, the acronym that she used. It's like, it starts with a C. It's not CMAT or something like that. But anyways, you'll find out, I'm sure.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. All right. We're going to move to the next item of the agenda, and that is the superintendent update. Annie.
Yeah, so just some additional items that may have arisen prior to or after we the agenda. Updated and corrected job descriptions. The first one, speech language pathologist assistant. So this is a job description, but we're actually using a independent contractor. So this will not be an employee of the district. We need this now because we have 3 preschools. Many of our preschoolers are essentially COVID littles. And so we have seen a big uptick in early intervention. That's not surprising. And speech language is one of the early intervention services that's most commonly provided for very young children. So while we have a full-time speech and language pathologist in the district, that person's caseload was just absolutely untenable. So we did connect with a retired SLPA who does contract work. So we don't need to hire an employee. We just need our SLP to be able to get support from a speech language pathology assistant in order to meet the needs of all the students on the caseload, particularly with early intervention. The job description, though, even though not our employee, it's more of a state of expectation, so the person knows what's expected. We're asking you to approve a job description that the attorney has already reviewed. The second job description I'll say is the one that is not, whichever one I gave you last month, Ethan, I don't know, Irving. So yeah, I figured that out. You're no longer looking at Irving. I've actually linked the correct job description for Director of Finance and Operations and Operations, which would be
Excellent.
Looks really good.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. Do I hear a motion to approve both of these job descriptions?
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the SLP, I'm sorry, I didn't see this before in our agenda. I know Annie, you said it might have been added late, so I apologize. So they're not doing any testing. The SLPA won't be doing any testing. I haven't had a chance to read. I'm trying to quickly.
No, it's sorry, it was before, it was in the action items below. I just moved it up to presentation. So I realized you probably wanted to.
I did
what it was.
Yeah.
So no, the SLPA is really about intervention, right? So given the number of students that we have, just very quickly to give you a sense of this, we have currently 88 students who are eligible for special education. We have 42 students who receive OT, occupational therapy services. We have 34 students who receive physical therapy services. And we have this year, again, because remember we have 3 preschools, we had 93 students receiving speech language services. That's not typical case. So this is about actually clinical intervention in the classroom or sometimes pull out, always overseen by an SLP. And it's a particular license. It's actually a Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a board of registry, board of licenses. An SLPA has to have. And this person that's doing this contract work for us is a retired SLPA.
Thank you.
All right, so we've had a motion and a second. Tara, do you feel prepared to vote on this?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
And quickly, yeah, student enrollment. Very quickly, just as Jen said, we've had 26 school choice students enroll at Hadley Elementary School. Hadley Elementary enrollment is up to 294. Pre-COVID, it was probably around 282. So pre-COVID levels. Hopkins Academy is slowly on rebound. Remember, at Hopkins Academy, you have fewer grades because you pre-K through 6 down below. You have fewer grades and more competition, but they're up to 213. We have new families arriving in our community and in our schools all the time. I want to thank our community members for being so welcoming. I want to thank our staff for being so welcoming, always wanting to go above and beyond to welcome new families and students. As I said, they're coming in all the time and we're really excited. And then negotiations. This is something that I would ask the chair to consider appointing a liaison. I've spoken with Ken, and Ken has formally now requested, but he and I did talk about it together. We feel that it would behoove us to enter into negotiations early and with a very limited focus for our Unit D, our ESPs, to do an evaluation of their compensation. You may be reading through the Commonwealth. Chicopee has done this recently. Other places have done this. Amherst, in their last contract, did some major adjustments. So our school committee has commented on how much they value the work of these individuals. We are competitive with regional wages for that labor. However, we'd like to have a conversation. I think the HEA would like to talk with the school committee about how we approach compensation for that job class. In order to move ahead with that, if the school committee is amenable to it, is the chair could appoint, accept somebody who's willing to be a liaison for that specific negotiation, targeted, small. Ken, Christine, Markowski. I will be the note taker in the school committee.
And just as to recap, this is for Paris, which is unit.
Unit only compensation. And,
I'll entertain any member to volunteer.
I'd like to volunteer.
Excellent. Christine, we'd love to have you in that role. Tara, Ethan, any objections? You're in favor? Perfect.
Go get them, Chris.
All right.
Ethan.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you so much.
All right. Excellent. Moving on to the next item, student representative updates. And Grant, we are so excited to see you here. We'd love to get an update from you. And also, you've been here patiently this whole time. You must have comments on some of the things that you've heard so far. I welcome it. So feel free to add your perspective there too.
Thank you. So I have a little bit of what Priscilla wanted to say as well. We just like compiled our thoughts, but I guess I'll first talk about what I wanted to like comment on. I just wanted to comment on the MCAS. I know a lot of students really don't like MCAS, not like only because it's a standardized test and obviously students don't really want to take standardized tests, but that a lot of people really stress about it because they feel as though they're not like prepared maybe, or that it's just too heavily weighted. Like if talking about it's weighted, like you have to pass it to graduate, just like that's a lot of pressure on one test. So I'm definitely happy to hear that in the future that's hopefully gonna change. But yeah, that's my comments. And then what I wanted to talk about was I have two things, just like some fun announcements. So the new club, the International Club, is being run by the new French teacher, as far as I'm aware. And right now they're doing a fundraiser where they are selling handmade traditional Guatemalan bracelets, and all the profits they're making are being donated to artisans in Guatemala, as Guatemala is undergoing a human rights crisis, particularly affecting lower class citizens such as artisans. And then another thing is a new club, tutoring club. It was started by a group of 10th graders, and it is meant for 7th through 10th graders that need help with their classes, and would rather go to help from students rather than teachers. So helping peers definitely really good for our community. And a quote from that is run by fellow students that have aced your classes. So if you guys have any questions about either of those clubs, I can try to answer them.
Well, the tutoring club, my goodness, what a great opportunity to help your peers. They say that the best way to learn is to teach. And so if you have to turn around and like explain something, you really grasp it that much further. So it's in the best interest of the tutor. And also, somehow, it's just so much better to learn it from someone who's your closer in age to you without the judgment of a teacher or the like. So love hearing about that. Glad that you're on board with the MCAS feelings that we have. Always value your perspective. Colleagues, would you like to add some comments?
So I love hearing about the different fundraisers. So half the time by the time I get around to reading the newsletters, and I miss the deadlines, like I miss the deadlines on the mums. So it would be great if you could like fill us in on who's raising money and what they need and what they're selling or doing. That would be great. I love the tutoring club for two good reasons. One, now you get to see what teachers go through. And two, hopefully some of you will be interested in becoming great educators. So I think it's a great idea.
I know we have the educators club that Miss Lord runs. So, and I think there's a lot of members of that, and she does it like they are volunteering at the elementary school, I think.
They're doing the homework.
And yeah, they're doing the homework club, and I think they're also doing after school program just to like get a little bit of what childcare is like, because obviously teachers, I think they have to do childcare.
Even when they're in middle school. Yeah.
Indeed. All right, terrific. Thank you so much, Grant.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
Before you log off, I just have to say that the school committee, as Grant was listening to his friends and classmates get awards, and classmates, because Grant is going to be graduating early. Grant will graduate from high school at 16 years old with a number of college grants. Grant would absolutely have been nominated for an award, but he just graduated too quickly for me. I'm like, what are you doing here? Well, this happened. So if the school committee would indulge me, I'll only read pieces of it, but I gave Grant his letter of recommendation for college. So a couple of things that I noticed about Grant. A 16-year-old high school senior who by his example challenges me to act in ways that foster justice, inclusion, and support for people who are often marginalized and discriminated against. Grant does not spend the necessary time asking why do things have to be like this. Instead, he asks himself, what am I willing to do to make things better? He's never satisfied with pointing out a problem. He wants to be a part of the solution. He too is somebody who's been in the diversity club, the Gay Straight Alliance. He's a varsity athlete. He has completed a number of college courses and advanced and honors courses. He's in the peer mentoring program, student council, representative to the school committee, an intern for me. And I ended his college recommendation letter, which is very long, saying that I will end where I began. Grant encourages me to do better and to be better. Students such as Grant remind me why I chose my profession, and having public schools has benefited from his contributions. His accomplishments and character inspire me to offer my best to my work and the world every day. Thank you, Grant.
Congratulations, Grant.
Thank
So,
Super impressive. Super impressive.
all right. We're going to keep on moving.
Yep.
All right. I believe we have approved most things except for the school committee minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the school committee minutes of September 26th?
So moved.
Do I hear all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. School committee updates and general.
You skip business manager reports. Did you want those? You just skip one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we just skipped over that whole section. Okay. Let's back it up. Business manager, come back to us, Chris. Tell us about grants. No grants report.
No grants.
Revolving.
The grants report is quick. There's none. Or no report. Let me rephrase that. So we have the expense report. I think this is the first one you've seen this year. Again, no issues to look at. There are several accounts that are showing as over budget. Most of these either have some of the expenses should be assigned to a grant, but they're more in the encumbered category right now rather than spent. So until they're fully spent, I won't transfer them over to the grant. There were a few items, I did some transfer today, but sometimes when a bill comes in, it gets posted to a certain account and it really should be posted to a different account. And I did notice that in some instances, such as there were some furnace repairs that were done and they were posted to grounds maintenance instead of to building maintenance. So, it's just a slightly different account number, but nevertheless, those will all be fixed for the next meeting. So, if there's anything that alarmed you, please understand that it will not alarm you next month, I guess. But I can answer any questions anyone may have on this.
I do not have any questions, but I look forward to getting the updated report.
Then we have the revolving account report. Again, with this account or with this report, any of the items that have the asterisks next to the header, the town has not yet posted the September revenues to them. So that's why you see that, with most of these, the expenses have hit, but we do not have the revenues posted to offset those. So you can see pretty much a drop almost across the board with the exception of student activity in these accounts. School choice, I did post the revenue. The town hasn't posted it yet, but I know the dollar amount for that. So it was easy for me to just add it to the balance. And the reason for the decrease in that, we had those extra security cameras that we paid for with the installation costs on those. And we also get a lot of tech expenses that are offset by this program called E-Rate. And what we've chosen to do is to have them basically just send the check directly to the vendor rather than to us. But we needed a purchase order for the vendor before the order could be placed. So I, really as a placeholder, I just put it in school choice for now rather than in one of the general fund accounts that would artificially show it as overextended when it's really not. So as soon as that goes through as well, we'll see an uptick back in the school choice account. So, some adjustments to be made, but again, they are all coming in due time.
Great. Any questions for Chris? Okay.
We had one other item, I guess it can kind of be done together, but that's for Thursday night's town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
We have the PowerPoint and handout. I'm trying to find, there it is. Okay, I had it on my computer somewhere. So we created a PowerPoint, which basically just showed the pictures of several parts of the locker rooms that I took a couple of weeks ago. Basically just showing things like poor line of sight. There's, a restroom that the door opens inward and boy, there's just not a lot of room in there. Also things like accessibility. The benches are cemented right into the floor, so they can't be moved over to allow easier access to get past those. Narrow hallways, old, outdated univents in the lockers, and then just basically showing a slide that gives kind of an idea of what these will look like when they're done. We'll have less lockers in the locker rooms. Right now, I think there are about 180 lockers in there. That's basically just by going, they're all numbered, so you can kind of tell how many there are. We don't need 180 lockers in the locker rooms. What we do need are wider lockers so that the backpacks or something that students actually keep their stuff in can fit in them. If you were to go in there, they're basically all on the floor in front of the locker because they just can't fit in. So, again, this is not the actual plan. The plans that were done many years ago for the locker rooms don't have an actual kind of artist rendition of what it would look like. The athletic fields had that overhead view of what it would look like when it's finished. These plans didn't come with it, but this is a pretty good idea. Wider around the benches, so you could get access in there. So it's just kind of an example, and we can certainly explain that to the public at Thursday night's meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking us through that. And I imagine that this is already in the hands of our select board and finance committee. And do you have a sense for whether they've already given their thumbs up on it?
We know the capital committee did. So we don't have the votes for the select board and finance, but we do know that the town capital committee did endorse it, all that were present. A big thank you to those will be included when the warrant is updated. You can see the warrant is currently linked in there, but they haven't provided. Usually they add warrant, select board, FinCom. A big thanks to Chris Pip. So Chris Squared will be up at special town meeting on Thursday walking people through the slides, and I will be handing out handouts.
Thank you so much. We should try to all be there if possible. And I welcome y'all to join me up front. And I'll be keeping an eye out for you all. So see you then. Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
There's another item under business manager reports, and that's the HES playground project.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It was really just kind of an update. I mean, obviously we don't have a dollar amount or anything like this yet because it's much further down the road, but I just really wanted to just bring it to the committee's attention that the show that Ann and I presented at in Worcester last week had basically a vendor fair as well. And there were 2 playground vendors at the fair. So I got business cards from them along with catalogs from both of them, a heavy stack of catalogs actually. And so, you know, it's just something that would give people an idea of what we might be able to do with them anyway. And we're working on creating an account. I did respond to an email from Tara tonight, basically just saying we'll look to create an account similar to what we did for the athletic fields. Not really a true revolving account because it's going to go away next year, but create something that we can not only deposit any town money to, but also any donations to.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris, for doing that. And Chris, can you be in touch with Tara around those the stacks of designs? I'm sure she and her team will love seeing those.
Sure, absolutely.
So yeah, I was going to ask Chris if, that's really exciting. Thanks for sharing that update. And if I could just really quickly give you a quick update, we did do surveys to staff, all HES staff, and to all HES parents and caregivers. The staff survey closed last night and the parent survey closes tonight. I'll be closing that tonight. We have almost 200 responses from the parent survey, which I thought was quite impressive. We did get a lot of staff input and a lot of responses to the open-ended questions with some really good feedback. So we're looking to schedule a meeting, probably not this week, but hopefully the beginning of next week with a team to sit down and kind of review this data and see if we can come up with a vision. So at some point between now and then, Chris, I'd love to snag those catalogs from you. So that I can sit down and share those and we can start to take a look at that. It's really quite exciting.
Actually, is there a place I can leave them for you? Would something like the elementary school be easier for you?
If you're at the elementary school, I'm happy to grab them there, or I'm happy to stop by the admin office too. Either way.
Okay, I can leave them at the elementary school. That's fine.
Perfect. Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we can move on to the, school committee updates and general announcements. The first item is that Hadley Public Schools was highlighted in Ed Week. That was really an initiative that Sarah Ross of K-12 Undaunted initiated. She was interviewed and framed a story, and so you can click on the link in the agenda and check that out. I love when our school gets publicity for doing things innovatively. Of course, the work is still ahead, so but we're definitely out front. There's just not as much information about the incentives available, so we should consider ourselves in good stead and just really keep our nose to the grindstone in seeing this vision forward. Paul is not able to be here, but Annie, do you have anything to add about Fields?
We'll get more details next month, but suffice it to say, the project is plugging along. Thank you very much to Aglo for helping us, and it just needs to stop raining. That would help a lot.
Yeah.
I'll arrange for that. And Chris, can you tell us about Capitol?
Just that I'll be there on Thursday to fight for the locker rooms that are long overdue.
Excellent. Could not agree with you more.
As I say, Tara should know about those. I think that, yeah, it has not changed.
No, they haven't. Thank you, Chris Squared. I really like that for being there and supporting. So that's really huge. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And Ethan, you brought us a policy. Is there anything else we should be aware of?
Nothing too intense. We just have a public participation policy coming your way at maybe the first read at the next meeting, and then we'll do the allergy reading again next meeting as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Our next meeting date is supposed to be November 27th, but if I understand it correctly, that is a date that doesn't work for you, Tara, due to a conflict. And that's true? Is that correct?
It is true. I won't be available on the 27th. I don't know what we have on the schedule, if it's pertinent from if it's okay to miss and there isn't anything too important, it's fine to not reschedule it if everybody else has it, or we can do a different day if it's important. Sorry, I have.
If it would be helpful, Humira, one thing I could do is just check availability on the 20, because they're both tricky. One is the Monday after Thanksgiving and one is the Monday before, right? So, but I can do a poll and see which
I'll be
one.
traveling from Florida.
Which one?
On the
Which one?
23rd.
On the 20th
Yes. Or 20, whatever, the one
to
before.
the 27th. The one before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yes. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where
20.
we have a quorum. I'll figure out where we have a quorum, and then you can call it from there. And we have quorums in both places.
Okay.
I could probably do it from my car. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, if it generally seems, because Thanksgiving is the Thursday, the 23rd, that maybe the Monday prior might be more doable than right after the weekend. I certainly would be in favor of that. My schedule can accommodate either Monday. So Annie, thank you for polling
Yeah,
the
I will
members.
tomorrow. I'll put it on my calendar right now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So we do not have a date, but we will soon. And I think that it concludes our meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.